And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us once again as we discuss the MLB trade deadline. Got a couple of trades today, kind of a contender to contender trade anyway, between the Minnesota Twins and the Miami Marlins, trading a couple of relievers. Jorge Lopez goes to the Marlins. Dylan Floro goes to the Twins. And then we saw another contender type trade anyway, or at least postseason contender anyway, with Ahmed Rosario going from the Guardians to the Dodgers in exchange for Noah Syndergaard. So a couple of trades already today. And now just this evening, we got the news that Shohei Ohtani is going to be taken off of the market. This coming from Tom Verducci of Sports Illustrated, saying they're going to go ahead and take him off the market, and they're going to try to add here at the deadline. They will be buyers. We'll see if this report holds water as we get closer to the trade deadline. If they do end up adding some pieces, what types of pieces do they add? Do they try to go all out and get every single beat piece they possibly can in a last-ditch effort to try to win one while Ohtani is there and convince him to stay? Remains to be seen. And now you're seeing an absolutely classic game right now between the Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros. In case you haven't been watching the action that's already taking place on the field, Andrew Heaney is the starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers. Jose Altuve is back in the lineup along with Yordan Alvarez for the Astros today. Their first game back off of the injured list. Bregman hit a 3-run home run in the bottom of the first inning. Heaney hit a batter after that in Alvarez in his first plate appearance since he's come back from the IL. Heaney was able to get out of it without allowing another run. He still has yet to allow another run. But Framber Valdez in the next half inning plunked Marcus Semien right squarely on him. You saw the intensity from Marcus Semien right after that, and the Rangers have since stormed back. They now lead it 6-3, and what a half inning that was for the Texas Rangers. First, Jonah Heim goes out due to injury. Sam Huff has to come in and immediately is struck out because he was already in a 2-2 count. Right after that, though, is when the Rangers began their rally. And what a rally it was. They got 4 runs in that half inning anyway. They chased the starter Framber Valdez as well. And what a game you're seeing. The capper of that inning, why this game is so great right now, Marcus Semien in his first at-bat after getting plunked intentionally by Framber Valdez, launches one into the Crawford boxes to give them that 6-3 advantage. Absolutely great game. Right now we are in the bottom of the 4th inning. Heaney, of course, looks like he's struggling once again for the Rangers. That's, again, why they need some starting pitching help. But right now, 2 on, nobody out, 6-3, Rangers in front. But if you guys want to check that one out, I wouldn't blame you. What a great game it is shaping up to be. But as we mentioned off the top, got a couple of trades today. Let's kind of check out some of the rumors from around Major League Baseball. As we mentioned, the swap that sent Ahmed Rosario, who's in a contract year for the Guardians, to the Dodgers, kind of solves their shortstop hole after they've basically tried a number of different people there this year. With the addition of Kike Hernandez, they should have a number of different options to attack left-handed pitching as well. Ahmed Rosario should be able to help the Dodgers in that regard. So the Dodgers really bulking up as far as platoon guys. I think Ahmed Rosario will probably get the bulk of his of the playing time anyway at shortstop, but Kike Hernandez is probably going to float literally all over the diamond, much like he has in previous years for the Dodgers. But the Dodgers do add one more piece. Now, I do expect the Dodgers to try to add a starting pitcher as well. Noah Syndergaard really didn't seem like a fit there with LA this year. We thought he might be great there with the front office and the knowledge, the intellect coming into the Dodgers organization, might be able to square up Noah Syndergaard. It just never really happened, and so I guess this will be the fifth team in 2 years for Noah Syndergaard. But that's kind of the first trade the second trade we saw today. The first one was the reliever for reliever trade. Jorge Lopez, you might remember him from his time with the Baltimore Orioles. He was fantastic last year with Baltimore. Things have not gone quite so well with the Minnesota Twins. Has an ERA over 5. Things are not looking good for him there. Therefore, the Twins decided, hey, let's see if we can try to shake things up. Maybe a change of scenery might work best for Jorge Lopez, and maybe getting a more consistent reliever like Dylan Floro might help them out as well in Minnesota. So that's what we saw so far today. So that's kind of where things are right now. Let's get into some of the rumors that are out there. First and foremost, let's talk about that Shohei Ohtani news coming from Tom Verducci. The news from Tom Verducci says that he has a source within the Angels organization that says they are not going to trade Shohei Ohtani. They're going to take him off the market entirely. They have not found an offer to their liking. The offers that they've said they've been getting are not even including top prospects. So all those crazy trade ideas we've been seeing bandied about online, apparently none of those ideas are even close to what's being offered for Shohei Ohtani this season. So welcome in, JG. Appreciate you for coming back. But we'll see what happens with the Angels. The second thing from Tom Verducci is that they're going to be buyers at the deadline. They're not just going to stand pat and hope they can make a wild card spot. They're going to add to this team. So they're doubling down on their bet to keep Shohei Ohtani after the season, that they can convince him to stay by making a run to a wild card spot, maybe even a run into the postseason. Shohei Ohtani said time and time again he's really liked his time with the Angels, but he also really wants to win. So we'll see what ultimately wins out this offseason. But at least for right now, it seems like the Angels at least have a direction that they want to go for their organization. I'm right there with you, JG. I think it's organizational malpractice to do what the Angels have done the past 2 years. They should have traded him 2 years ago. You're talking about a 9-10 prospect package coming back for Shohei Ohtani. The biggest trade package we would have ever seen for one player and will ever see for one player. That would have been the result. Nice work by Andrew Heaney, by the way, getting out of that 2-on, nobody out jam, allowing no one to score. And bend don't break, I guess, for the Rangers there. But the Rangers do need some starting pitching. We'll dig into that here in a moment. But again, organizational malpractice for the LA Angels. Sorry, Angels fans. Sorry, all those apologists out there that say, it's Shohei, he's the best player in the world, we can't possibly trade him. That's just hubris. I'm sorry, your organization would have been better even to make a postseason run without Shohei Ohtani. Just looking at what you possibly could have gotten, just on what the offers are out there anyway, so I would expect those offers would have come up as we got closer to the deadline. If you said, hey, Shohei is really available, I have no doubt top prospects would have been offered. And maybe that's part of the impetus for the announcement from the source close to the Angels organization or within the Angels organization, is that they weren't getting the real offers that they were hoping for Shohei. We could see this report backtracked in a couple of days, but as of right now, it seems like they're going to add instead of sell at the deadline. They are 4 games back in the wild card. Just kind of show you where those stand right now. The wild card right now, they're 3.5 back of the last wild card spot. Toronto holding on to that one right now. You'd have to think one of the 2 AL East and one of the 2 AL West teams will get the first 2 wildcard spots, and then it'll be up to Toronto, Boston, New York, the Angels, and Seattle really to kind of battle for that final wildcard spot. I don't think the Guardians really have a shot to that final wildcard spot, but they could have a shot at the Twins division crown. But the Twins have certainly come on over the last couple of weeks. Seems like they might be getting out of their own way. The starting pitching has been good all year. The offense has been inconsistent, and the bullpen's been inconsistent. We'll see if they can straighten it out here at the deadline, maybe adding a piece or 2 here or there. We just saw the Twins make an addition there with Dylan Floro. But appreciate you guys joining us once again. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. We'll be live for you guys all day during the MLB trade deadline on August the 1st. Make sure you join us. We'll be starting really early in the morning just to kind of recap all of the headlines from around Major League Baseball that have happened up until that point, and go over all the different rumors that we're seeing around Major League Baseball and break down every single trade as they happen, what they mean for both the buying team, the selling team, what it means for the players going to each side, who wins, quote-unquote, the trade. We won't really know that until the results are in from the season, and for the prospects even after the season. But instant reaction, you will have it here at the Upside, so make sure you hit that subscribe button here, and follow us on Twitter, @UpsideSN. Find us on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. But some of the other rumors, of course, are around the St. Louis Cardinals right now. Flaherty made his final start, and what appears to be his final start anyway, for the St. Louis Cardinals today. 5 innings, 8 hits, gave up a few runs. Not exactly his best performance, but it just kind of shows you what the Cardinals have been dealing with all season. Not necessarily great pitching performances, and not being able to recover from those types of pitching performances as well. Welcome back, Jose. Angels crushing the hearts of some teams that were hoping to trade for Ohtani by saying he won't be traded. Sure, but I think this gives the market some clarity. We saw numerous reports come out today that the market is really being held up by the Shohei Ohtani announcement, whether he was going to be traded or if the Angels were ultimately going to hold on to him. Make it 7-3 as Sam Huff turns around that ball and gets his first home run of the season. That's a welcome sight for Rangers fans. Sam Huff really hadn't done anything at the Major League level, a former top 10 prospect for them. He's starting to age out of their system. he could be had here at the deadline. Somebody who needs some depth at catcher, somebody who needs a prospect at catchers, wants to give him some playing time. Could be somebody out there, but extends the Rangers' lead 7-3 in the top of the 5th inning. Absolutely launched that ball. That's the Sam Huff we saw in the Futures game a couple of years ago. We'll see if he can get back to that status. But as far as the Shohei Ohtani news, this I think will at least clear some of the logjam out there for all the rumors that are out there about him, being on the market or off the market. This will at least give some organizations the clarity of what they want to do here at the deadline. For instance, teams that were in the market for him, the LA Dodgers, Baltimore Orioles, New York Yankees, San Francisco Giants, Texas Rangers, can all move on to their other targets. The Texas Rangers specifically could use some of those prospects that they may have been holding back for discussions for a Shohei Ohtani. Now they can probably include those for some of those top-end relievers that they want to go for at this trade deadline, maybe a starting pitcher. We floated the idea yesterday about the Milwaukee Brewers possibly moving on from Corbin Burnes, even though they're a first-place team right now, and he looks to be like a Cy Young candidate on the National League side in a year where there's not a whole lot of guys out there for that type of role right now. But Corbin Burnes would certainly command a pretty penny. Remember, the Josh Hader trade last year came literally out of nowhere after years of speculation that this was the year they were going to finally trade him. Finally, the year that they do trade him, nobody's expecting him to be moved, and he comes out of nowhere and is traded. And the package wasn't exactly all that great. Corbin Burnes, I'm imagining, would command an even better package than what Josh Hader got last year for the Brewers. Brewers are going to probably do something similar if they were to move on from Burnes, Woodruff, Adames, Yelich, etc. But they've certainly got lightning in a bottle right now with Sam Frelick. This will take all the fun out of this year's trading deadline. No Juan Soto trade, no Ohtani trade. I don't think it's going to take the fun out of it at all. I think this is going to give the market some clarity. Is that a triple there for Robbie Grossman? Okay. Have a day against your former club. Had a double earlier in the game and now a triple. He was with the Astros from 13 to 15. Yep. Hammered that one into right center. Welcome back, Charles. But again, I think this Ohtani news is really going to clear up some of the logjam around the market. You're going to see a lot of the starting pitching market finally start to move because Ohtani was really a part of that market as well. Now you're kind of left to the options that are already out there that are just starting pitchers. Ohtani being a two-way player held up literally both markets, and I think that's going to free up a lot of trades here in the next couple of days. Remember, we told you guys at the beginning of the week that we would probably see some of the bigger trades happen this week before we get through Sunday, because that's the type of thing that's going to take some time to hammer out. The bigger prospects in the move, those types of things. Another RBI single here for the Rangers. This is a statement game right now for the Rangers. Falling behind 3-0. Looks like the big bad Astros were coming back and taking over the division once again. They're getting healthy. They get Altuve back. They get Alvarez back. They got their ace on the mound. You give up a 3-run home run in the bottom of the first. And what a statement game led by Marcus Semien this is for the Texas Rangers, who, by the way, is about to be at the plate right now for the Rangers. It's now 8-3 Texas in the top of the 5th. What a game. Check it out if you guys are in Texas. You might want to flip on the tube. It's a good one. But as far as the trade deadline here goes, I think this is the Ohtani trade being off of the market, or if he ultimately comes back onto the market, I think this is kind of clear things up over the next couple of days. We're going to see some of the bigger names moved, if they're going to be moved at all. And excuse me, swing for Semien, a little dribbler. And he gets another base hit. Kind of a swinging bunt. Wow. Welcome in, Morgan. That'll set back the Angels 5 to 10 years. I think it's going to set them back a full decade. I don't think there's 5 to 10 years of a setback here. They don't have too much left at the top end of their farm system right now. They got a couple of decent young pieces on their roster. Logan O'Hoppe, the guy they got in the trade last year, Mickey Moniak's had a nice season. But their top end of their farm system right now is an absolute desert. And I think they're with a team with Mike Trout on it. And another, that looks like a challenge here coming from the Rangers. Looks like he might have beat it out there. Yep, they're going to review it. Ezekiel Duran grounded out to shortstop to end the inning, but they're going to go ahead and review it. Rangers have been hosed this season on reviews, by the way. They got hosed earlier this season because of Jonah Heim blocking the plate by standing on one side of the line versus the other. Well before the ball was actually there or the runner. We saw them get hosed in Houston twice now on replays, and we'll see what happens here. Haven't really seen what the replay looks like if he was safe or out, but might be some justice here for the Rangers coming their way. Ohtani wants to be a Yankee. We shall see. Who thinks Ohtani will be in Blue Jays? I think it would cost the Blue Jays literally what's left of their farm system right now if they did the Ohtani trade, but I don't think there's a chance Ohtani's moved, at least right now. Things would really have to go wrong over the next week for the Angels to go ahead and decide to reverse course and trade him. But I think the Angels, I agree with you, Sarah. I mean, like I said, organizational malpractice. Yep, the call is overturned. Some justice here for the Rangers. Call is overturned. Ezekiel Duran beats out the infield single. Bases are now going to be loaded with 2 outs. 8-3 the advantage already. I'm telling you, turn on the tube. It's a good one. And bases are loaded for one of the top 2 hottest hitters in all of baseball right now. Nathaniel Lowe and Kyle Tucker, by the way, are both in this game. Nathaniel Lowe so far today is 2 for 2. And there's nowhere to put him. Take strike 1. But anyway, back to the trade deadline as far as what this is going to do for some of the bigger names that are out there. Think of the names that, like Dylan Cease, like some of the really big pitchers, Corbin Burns, etc. Those types of trades now have an opportunity to happen because the Ohtani name is off of the market. Those teams can go ahead and start engaging in dialogue as to what it might actually take instead of holding everything on the back burner and waiting for the Ohtani decision, and then with 2 days left before the deadline, trying to hurriedly try to just figure something out. Those are franchise-altering moves. That's why they're going to have to happen before Sunday evening. So if you're hoping to get one of these big-time trades out there, this is the best thing, our best-case scenario well before the deadline. We got, 6 days before the deadline right now as we speak, and now we have time to really negotiate in good faith on both sides from the teams that could sell those top-end pieces and the teams that are trying to acquire them. This offseason, Juan Soto and Ohtani will be talked about a lot. Who will get the biggest contract? Ohtani by a mile because he can do both. Another swing fouled off here. Snell is off the table now too. I think the Padres are kind of in an interesting position. The sum of their parts so far this season really hasn't worked out well, but their outlying numbers look really good as far as they're having the ability to turn it around. And the NL teams are certainly struggling at the top of the wild card picture right now. You look at the Diamondbacks losing today to the Cardinals. Full count now to Nathaniel Lowe. But the Padres, I'd take that back, Cobra. I don't think they're going to be buyers, but I don't think they're going to be sellers either. I think they're going to stand pat at the deadline and see if they can just get into the wild card and see if they can catch lightning in a bottle. But looks like that one finishes beneath the zone. Nathaniel Lowe takes a bases-loaded walk. It's now 9-3 Texas. Ohtani will take a discount to be a Yankee. I don't think that's true at all. Look at the future of what the Yankees have right now. They have a lot of bloated contracts already. Their farm system's extraordinarily thin outside of Jason Dominguez. They got a lot of aging superstars on their roster with multiple years of on their rosters or on their deals still left. I don't think there's any solution for the Yankees long term without really overpaying for Ohtani. So, discount to be a Yankee, not a chance. Welcome back, Bryce. I think Flaherty is getting moved, so is DeYoung for sure. I agree with you, Sarah. We saw some Cardinals reporters basically say so much on DeYoung yesterday, and then Flaherty, the emotion of the game, you can kind of tell. I think we saw him hug his mom before the game, what might be his final start in a Cardinals uniform. It looks like he is going to be gone. We'll see what kind of trades ultimately happen, but it looks like the Cardinals are certainly open for business. Oh my! Adolis Garcia cranks one onto the train tracks. Grand slam, home run, Texas Rangers, 13-3 Texas. Boom! What a statement by the Rangers today. Holy smokes. Oh my goodness. 13-3 with Valdez, their ace on the mound that absolutely looked shook. And Martin Maldonado is getting in the face of the Rangers at home plate. Managers are out. Umpires are out. I told you this game was a powder keg. It absolutely is. Benches are emptying. Benches are emptying as we speak. Couple of players being held back. Bullpen guys are running out. Backup catcher for the Astros is really trying to get back out there. Yordan Alvarez and Bochy talking in the center. Just saying, all right, everybody go back to the dugout. Martin Maldonado got in the face of Adolis Garcia as he crossed home plate. Aroldis Chapman looks like a man among boys right now, skying over everybody. Wow. What a game. No punches thrown, nobody shoving anybody, but looks like the sides are separating. And what a statement right now by the Texas Rangers. I'm telling you, watch the game right now. Holy smokes. This is exactly the type of thing the Texas Rangers needed. They've been listless for a better part of a month and change. They came out of the All-Star break and were 6-0. They lost a couple against the Dodgers, had some issues with with injuries, Seager going out, Garcia missing some time, Chapman hugging it out with Altuve there. That's an interesting sight to see. I mean, remember in the postseason, Jose Altuve hit that major home run against the Yankees when Aroldis Chapman was there. What a game this is. Bruce Bochy was an excellent get by the Rangers. Absolutely couldn't agree with you more, Cobra. He's really given this team some legitimacy. The umpires right now are gathering to see what needs to happen out of this. My guess is they'll probably toss Maldonado, maybe Garcia, just because those were the two that started it. But Valdez probably is going to go. He's been an emotional powder keg since the Rangers rattled him earlier in the game. But I'm guessing Maldonado is going to get run here. I mean, I was originally an Astros fan, just so you guys know, along with a Rangers fan, because they're both Texas teams. One NL team, one AL team. I rooted for them both. Back in the days when they had Moises Alou, Richard Hidalgo, those types of things, I couldn't stand the Astros that came back in the past decade or so with George Springer, Carlos Correa. Couldn't stand either of those two guys. And now that both of those guys are gone, I might be able to root for the Astros again. But exercising some demons, the Rangers certainly are doing that right now. Rangers fans certainly flexing in the audience right now. What a game this is. All right, let's see what ultimately happens. Looks like the umpires finally have dispersed and figured out what they want to do. Two umpires go to each bench to figure out what they're going to do. Bochy took that 98 World Series, yes. Bochy unhappy, trying to figure out what his guy did to actually deserve any of this. So I'm guessing they're going to run at least one Ranger off of this. My guess would be Adolis Garcia. But the Rangers really showing some backbone right now against a team that's really run this division for the past 6, 7, 8 years. Maldonado was already getting into it with the home plate umpire before Garcia even got to the plate, it looked like. The manager of the one of the bench coaches for the Astros looked like he was already coming out before Garcia even touched home to get Maldonado off of the home plate umpire. And then just kind of a discussion ensued, trying to get Garcia out of there. My guess is Garcia is going to be the Ranger that goes. Maldonado, I would put money on Maldonado being run out of this game. We'll go over our trade deadline discussion here in just a moment. Are they running Marcus Semien? Semien wanted to go out there and say a word to the umpires, but Bochy grabbed his arm for a second. Looks like Maldonado is tossed. He is going into the dugout. There are 2 outs still left in the inning. Oh, he turned back around. Somebody's getting tossed here. Martinez is walking off the field, the pitcher for the Astros. Maybe he got run. Still waiting for some clarification here. Maldonado arguing with the home plate umpire right now. Umpires are out with their lineup cards right now, scratching out a bunch of names. So maybe it's more than just a couple of guys. Yep, Maldonado is now leaving the field. He's got to be careful, otherwise you get that leave in a timely manner suspension type of thing. Maldonado's in danger of that right now, as the guy who originally came out of the Astros dugout to get him away from the home plate umpire is coming in. Looks like Dusty Baker is going to the bullpen for Montero. So maybe Martinez wasn't tossed. They're just going with a different pitcher. Former Ranger Montero is coming on. But what a situation we have on the field. Bench is clearing. Division rivalry. You knew it was going to be a hot, contested contest. Simeon shouting some things to the home plate umpire. My guess is Simeon's been run. Gets a few pats on the back. Looks like Simeon was saying a few things to Maldonado. Remember earlier in the game when he got intentionally hit by a pitch? Looks like those two were the ones who originally got into it. The home plate umpire stepped in between the two. So it's not Garcia that gets run, it's Simeon that gets run. Remember, he had that crushing home run earlier in the game after being hit intentionally by the pitch. What a moment in this game, though. 10-run lead. Appreciate you guys bearing with me. But a lot of action in that Rangers-Astros game. Looks like Simeon is the only one being sent on the Rangers side. Curious to see how many were sent on the Astros side. No pushing and shoving, really. Just a bunch of jawing back and forth. In either event, Martinez is out of the game as the pitcher, and Maldonado, the catcher, has been ejected. New catcher coming on for the Astros. Alrighty, back to the trade deadline. Appreciate you guys bearing with me there. A lot of activity in that game, and the Rangers and Astros are certainly going to be buyers here at the deadline. I think this type of a game right here is really going to convince Chris Young of the Rangers, the general manager of the Rangers, to make some big-time additions to this organization. If Shohei Ohtani had been available, we heard from the Rangers beat reporters today that he would have been the perfect piece for everything that ails this team. They have some of the worst production in the league right now at the designated hitter spot, and they need some starting pitching. Oh, by the way, Ohtani does both, so that's why we saw just before the announcement that, hey, Shohei Ohtani is going to be off of the market, that maybe the Rangers really would have been interested in a guy like that because he would have solved two of their biggest question marks. Now, where do the teams go from here? Specifically the Rangers, I think they're going to continue looking at relief pitchers. They've been mentioned to be connected to Keenan Middleton and a bunch of other relievers coming from the Chicago White Sox. Joe Kelly, Kendall Graveman. They've been looking at David Bednar of the Pirates, but he's looked at more of a pipe dream, slim chance kind of a thing. If they're able to convince the Pirates to part with him at all, would be a little bit surprising. They would have loved to get a guy like Josh Hader. I think the Padres, though, look like they want to stand pat here at the deadline, so I don't think they'll ultimately trade him, even though they might be better off doing so. But as far as the Astros, what exactly do they need here at the deadline? Starting pitching, starting pitching, starting pitching. And both the Rangers and Astros, the Cincinnati Reds, Arizona Diamondbacks, there's a lot of teams out there that need some starting pitching right now. There's been some activity on Lance Lynn today about him being willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to the Tampa Bay Rays. There was some discussion about whether he would do so for the Dodgers. The Rangers have since checked in on his market as of today, that coming from Evan Grant. So Rangers seem like they may be interested in a reunion with him. But remember, he's given up 28 home runs and has the second worst ERA in all of baseball so far this year. So you'd have to expect some positive regression here. We'll see if something happens with Lance Lynn going to one of the contenders out there, but he seems like a surefire bet to go here at the deadline, along with Lucas Giolito. Now, the bigger piece for the Chicago White Sox is Dylan Cease. Now, we mentioned earlier in previous shows that, that the Astros really don't have the prospect capital to make that type of a move. Could they move somebody off the Major League roster? Absolutely, but I think that would really hurt their chances going forward. Chas McCormick's really taken a stride forward with his career and his development this year, so I'm not sure they would want to part with him, but it remains to be seen if they would be willing to invest what it would take to get a guy like Dylan Cease. That's why we talked about guys like Marcus Stroman, that level of starting pitcher, possibly going to the Astros, because that's more the prospect capital that they have right now that they can actually trade. Meanwhile, the Rangers have Major League ready talent. They have AAA players that are ready to go, pitchers and hitters. Same thing with lottery level picks or lottery tickets down lower in the organization. 17, 18-year-old kids, if you really want that type of prospect, they have all types of prospects available for a type of, or for any type of trade that a team may want to do at the deadline. But as for some of the other teams out there, I know we've touched a lot on the Rangers over the last couple of days. Let's take a look at that American League East. Now, the New York Yankees right now sit 2.5 out. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Rodon has not looked good. He plunked another batter today. He's really not looked good for the better part of, I don't know, since he got back at all. He missed the first few months of the season as well due to injury. They need some starting pitching. They also need a corner outfielder. The Yankees could add a little bit around the edges. You're seeing the Cubs come back here against the White Sox. It's now 7-6. It was 7-3 a minute ago. But I'm very curious to see what the Yankees decide to do. Now that Ohtani's off the market, does that free them up to go out there and make a move for a guy like Cody Bellinger, who's also been connected to a number of teams out there? The Dodgers, the Rangers, the Astros have all been linked to Cody Bellinger right now. But we shall see what ultimately happens. Remember when Bochy took the Padres to the World Series? Yes, and then took the Giants and beat the Rangers actually in the World Series in, 2010, 2011, something like that? You ready for a call-up for the Cardinals? Well, for your Cardinals, I'm just excited to see what they can do with their rotation. I want to see them be able to pitch and be able to defend like they always have. That's been the one thing that's really hadn't happened for the Cardinals this year. They haven't been able to get any consistency off of that mound, and we'll see what they ultimately end up with after the trade deadline. Do they go out there and buy and sell in a trade? Maybe trade a guy like O'Neill and maybe another piece to bring in a guy like Logan Gilbert? Do they call Pittsburgh up and say, hey, we would love to have Mitch Keller in his future. Maybe we can work out a trade here, something like that, and do a little bit of buying and selling. But I think the Cardinals really need to invest in that starting rotation right now, and how they do it is really going to shape up how they're going to look, not just this year, but the next year and the year after that. I'm very curious to see what their decisions lead them to be. One other note on the St. Louis Cardinals is the reliever Jordan Hicks. They're still in negotiations to try to lock him up. I imagine those discussions are probably going to have to come to a head by tomorrow, maybe Friday at the latest. After that, then it's really anybody's ball game as to what happens with him. Are they going to be able to get that extension done before the deadline, or the Cardinals just say, hey, we can't run the risk of losing him for literally nothing, and then end up trading him somewhere else? But we'll see what happens there. On the National League side, we haven't talked too much about the NL. I want to talk a little bit about the New York Mets. We talked some about the San Diego Padres. They're 6 back. You look at their run differential, though, they're plus 52. The Cubs are plus 45. These are teams that are playing better than the record indicates, and so we might see them start to turn things around. We're already seeing the Cubs do it. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Padres are 5-5, kind of what they've been doing all year. But if they can finally get this this team moving in the right direction, they have the pieces, the leaders on this team, you would think, in Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Juan Soto, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, to be able to get this thing in the right direction. But they still haven't been able to do it as of yet. Everybody's been talking about how the Padres at some point are going to get it going in the right direction. The numbers tell you that it's there. The talent is there. But the question is, are they going to be able to get it done in time to climb over all these other teams? The Philadelphia Phillies had a big win today. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They look like they might be finally getting into the right swing of things here at the deadline. Phillies, I think, are going to be destined for one of those playoff spots, especially if they get one of, say, a starting pitcher. If they go out there and do the crazy thing and get a guy like Nolan Arenado, I don't think that's going to happen. But if they get that type of a player, I think they are guaranteed going to be an NL wildcard spot. And we saw how dynamic they were once they got into the postseason. So we'll see what happens in Philadelphia. I think the Giants are going to start to lose steam. We're already starting to see that as well. Arizona's 3-7. They're starting to fall behind a little bit. You see all these run differentials for these teams. Remember, Bryce Harper missed a bunch of time earlier this year as well, and they're still plus 8. Giants, I think, have been playing a little bit above their head, but they're plus 18. But we'll see what happens here at the deadline. The Giants are said to be interested in a guy like Justin Verlander. Verlander has said it has let it be known anyway, he would like to stay in New York, according to the New York media. However, I'm sure if a contender comes calling, say the Astros want him back, the Dodgers come calling and say, hey, Mets, if you'll eat all that contract, we'll give you one premium prospect. for Justin Verlander. That could be something that Justin Verlander might say, hey, I'm running low on opportunities to win a World Series. I want to take it. I don't want to miss one opportunity, so go ahead and trade me if I go to a legitimate World Series type of contending team. Artie Moreno didn't want to go down in history as the guy who traded the best player of our time. Understandably, but it's also going to set his organization back for a decade. Mark my words. You look at how bad the Athletics are right now, how just listless they look, which, by the way, they have a piece in Rooker that they could trade here at the deadline, maybe another bullpen piece as well. But just look at where that organization looks right now. They look like a AAA ball club, at best. That's being kind. Angels could be in a very similar situation because their talent base, their prospect pool, is not very strong. They've basically emptied it over the past couple of years through guys getting aged out, just poor performance, etc. If you lose a guy like Shohei Ohtani, an aircraft carrier for your organization, you're going to be Mike Trout, and if Mickey Moniak continues to play this well, Mickey Moniak and a bunch of guys who might be able to stay on the back end of somebody's roster at the major league level, but you're certainly looking at one of the lower, 4 or 5 finishers in the AL West for the next decade. So that's the worry I would have if I'm an Angels fan. You have to win this year. You have to win big in the postseason in order to really straighten this thing out. So we'll see what happens. 2 on, 2 out in that Rangers-Astros game. Bregman, who hit that 3-run home run earlier in the game, has 2 more on the pond. He's 2 for 2 in the game. Fascinating game to watch. We'll see if there's any more fireworks the rest of the game. But speaking about the trade deadline anyway, the one we already talked about was the Padres, but the Mets sit 7 games back. We mentioned a little bit last night about Justin Verlander. The news today on Justin Verlander is he doesn't really, it seems like the New York media at least has gets the inclination anyway that Justin Verlander's preference is to stay in New York. That's why he signed there after all. But we'll see if they decide to sell him. But they don't just have Justin Verlander here at the deadline. They also have Max Scherzer that they could deal. He certainly looks like a very different pitcher than the Max Scherzer we've seen over the last 5-6 years. The last 2 years, he's run out of gas in the postseason. This year, it looks like he's lost some velocity. He's lost some of his stuff. He's got an ERA over 4. He does not look like a frontline Game 1 starter in a rotation right now. But who knows? In the second half of the season, maybe he says, "Hey, it's playoff time to bear down, etc." He's got that experience, so you got to always take that into account. But so far, Scherzer just doesn't look like he's got enough in the tank to really be an impact player for a contending team. You look at the rest of the pieces on that roster. You look specifically at that bullpen. A guy like Robertson would certainly be useful to any team out there right now. He looks like he's back to being old Yankees version, vintage Robertson. He's that good of a pitcher right now for the New York Mets. He would be a big boon to any team that gets him as Bregman flies out to end the inning to left. And we go to the 6th, 13-3 Rangers. Interesting game there. But they also have guys like Adam Ottavino in the bullpen that they could use, and probably the best piece in their bullpen right now, the most successful so far this season, with 1 year of control left after this, is Brooks Raley. He has an ERA under 1, and I think he's going to be moved here at the deadline. He's the one piece out of that bullpen, besides Robertson, I would tag as most likely to go here at the deadline. I think the Mets don't really have the ability to sell big here at the deadline, but if they decided to do so, they're 7 games out of the wild card. You got some wild card teams in front of them that look like they're losing some steam. So there is an opportunity to move up here. But are you going to be able to leapfrog every single one of those and get into a wild card spot? I'm not so sure. And at that point, you got a big bloated payroll. If you're able to offset some of that money, maybe go out in free agency and spend a little bit more because you're able to save money here at the deadline. If I'm the Mets, I would have to think seriously about it. Now, you don't necessarily want to lose the city of New York to the Yankees once again, but you're not exactly going anywhere fast. I mean, you're not losing every single game. Right now, you're sitting, 6 games under 500 as we speak right now, maybe 7 games if the Yankees win right now. You don't really have enough momentum right now to say, hey, you're a contender, but we shall see. You saw the Blue Jays win today, 8-1 over the Dodgers. They look like they're not going anywhere on the American League side. You saw the Phillies. They beat the Orioles 6-4. Orioles, one of the hottest teams in baseball over the last month or two. Angels are going to play a doubleheader tomorrow. Go ahead and count that one as a split. Almost all doubleheaders are. And there they go. Mets do indeed lose here to the Yanks. Appreciate you guys joining us here tonight. Had a lot of fun already. Very entertaining game in Texas. Rangers winning 13-3. Highly contested battle. Couple of ejections already. Ace for the Astros got chased early. Just a very interesting game. This, I think, is a telltale game for the Rangers, though, more than the Astros. I think the Astros really had been playing great baseball, especially without their two biggest cogs in their lineup missing. Bregman certainly held his own in the lineup at least, but they really need Jose Altuve. They really need Yordan Alvarez. Kyle Tucker's my pick anyway to win the MVP for the second half of the season if they awarded one. He has been that good of a player. He and Nathaniel Lowe are kind of neck and neck for best offensive player in the game on the American League side right now, at least in the second half of the season. It's 10 games old so far, but so far both players look absolutely filthy. But the Astros were going to get better here in the second half. We kind of knew that coming into the season with the injury to Altuve. We knew the Astros were going to add here at the deadline. Their GM said as much, that they're looking for some starting pitching. Kind of funny, you had both Garrett Cole and you had Justin Verlander just a few seasons ago, and both of them were on your staff. You also had Zach Greinke on the staff at one point as well, and now here you sit, a shaken Framber Valdez. I want to see how he comes back in his next start, if he looks like the same old Framber Valdez, or if this start really got to his head, because he got into it. We've never really seen that level of emotion coming from him, and he absolutely lost all command at the very end of his performance today. But Astros are going to be adding here at the deadline. The Rangers, who had gotten out to a great start this season, great offensive numbers, their rotation looked good. Their rotation's really backed up over the last couple of months. They had a sub 3.5 ERA for the first couple of months of the season, over 4 for the month of July, and for the month of June, over 5 right now for the month of July anyway. So we'll see what happens for the Rangers. I expect them to add some starting pitching. Looking at the rest of the NL side, what could happen here at the very bottom? I think the Colorado Rockies have a number of pieces that they could move. It sounds like C.J. Cron is going to be one of the first pieces that's going to go. Rumors indicate that he could go to the Milwaukee Brewers. So Brewers, I expect to add a little bit here and there around their roster. The bigger question for them is, what are they going to do with Adames, Woodruff, Burns, and Yelich? Nolan Gorman was on fire today, 2 homers. Well, looks good for the Cardinals, finally getting some production. Let those young guys eat. Jordan Walker, Gorman, etc. Let those guys sit and play every single day and not have them platoon all the time. I think that's been part of the problem, is they haven't had consistent at-bats with all of the players that need those types of at-bats. You got the franchise cornerstones in Arenado and Goldschmidt. Outside of that, I think that's kind of the one thing the Cardinals have done a little bit too much, trying to implement or trying to, do the exact same thing of what the Dodgers have done for so successfully on the West Coast. They tried to do something similar there. They had so many outfield prospects. They wanted to get them all playing time instead of just sticking with one. They hoped one of them would seize the position, I suppose. But from the outside looking in, letting those guys struggle, letting them grow, is exactly what they need to do. Gorman, Walker need to be in the lineup every single day. There's no reason those guys should not, especially the second half of the season. Right now, the Cardinals sit 10 games out of the wild card spot. I think it's safe to say they are not going to be a contender this year. Very strange seeing the Cardinals so low in the standings. It's very rare you see the Cardinals this low in the standings. Now, we've seen them come back like a house of fire in the past, but this year just seems like a little too much to overcome. Inconsistent pitching performances, etc. But hopefully they get back to the Cardinal way. To me, the Cardinals and the New England Patriots are very similar as far as how they run their organizations. The Patriots have their Patriot way. You will do this. You will do your job. That's the thing with the New England Patriots. The Cardinals do something very similar. They expect you to play exemplary defense. They expect you to be able to pitch. and be able to put a good at bat together. Outside of that, they don't really care if you hit 30 home runs or if you're hitting 300. They want you to be able to field your position. They want you to be able to pitch, and they want you to be able to have good, consistent at bats. And I think the Cardinals kind of gotten in their own way a little bit with some of the decisions they've made with playing time in regards to some of their younger guys, some of their outfield guys, and their pitching. The lack of being able to develop some of those top-end pitching prospects that they had, say, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And, they hoped some of these guys would really have developed into some of the ace-type guys that we had hoped they would be. But you see where Flaherty's at right now. He's had his great moments, but he's inconsistent. And that pretty much can be said for the entire rotation for the St. Louis Cardinals. That's why going out there and adding somebody here at the deadline could be exactly what the doctor ordered for the future of the St. Louis Cardinals. Let's kind of refresh the page here, see if anything else is breaking while we've been on here. One piece of news, anyway, is that we mentioned the other day that the San Francisco Giants would probably have to include a couple of their top prospects in a trade for Shohei Ohtani. One of the names that we mentioned at that time was Marco Luciano. He has actually been called up to the Giants today, so we'll see how he does in his major league debut. Really excited about that player. Been following his career for the better part of 4 years now. Really thought he was going to be something special once he does get to the big leagues, so we'll see if they actually get that to happen. One other bit of news is that Rob Manfred has been extended as Commissioner of Baseball. He will be the Commissioner through 2029. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with teams trying to get into the league, teams trying to change locations. For instance, the A's moving from Oakland to Vegas. There's talk about Nashville getting a club, Montreal getting a club, Quebec City getting a club. There's a lot of talk out there about other cities getting some Major League Baseball teams, and I think Rob Manfred is going to be the commissioner for those types of discussions right now, because I think now is the time when you're going to start to see some of those discussions come into earnest. For instance, the Nashville group already basically has pegged Don Mattingly to be the manager for that organization when they do get up and running. His name has been attached to that group for a while now. Yordan Alvarez gets a wall ball there, his first hit back from the injured list. Takes the first pitch from Leclerc all the way to deep center for a leadoff double. 13-3, Rangers in front in the bottom of the 6th inning now. Astros really happy to see him back in their lineup. He's going to have a big impact on what the Astros do in the second half, along with Kyle Tucker, Jose Altuve, and Alex Bregman. But appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Let us know if you have any questions. Send them in the comments. Shoot us your trade ideas for your favorite team, and we'll see if they, make any sense. Let's have some fun now. We've been talking a lot about trades. Let's actually make some trades. In case you guys are unfamiliar with the site, baseballtradevalues.com gives you an approximate idea what a player might be worth on the trade market and what it would cost to get said player. So let's start with a simple 2-team trade. We've done a lot of Rangers trades, so we'll skip them for right now anyway. Let's go ahead and do, let's do the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pittsburgh is rumored to have discussions at least about Keller and about Bednar. You look at the trade value for Keller, though, 53. He's got 2 years of control after this year. He's already 27 years old. The Pittsburgh Pirates need some starting pitching prospects, so for them to trade one of their top young pitchers, it's going to be a little tough there. Sarah, since you're a Cardinals fan, we'll start with your Cardinals. What would it take for an in-division trade for them to be able to get Mitch Keller? Now, I'm not as high on Keller as a lot of the pundits out there are, but it's still going to cost a pretty penny to get him. I think it's going to cost less than it would cost to get a guy like Logan Gilbert. But let's just look here at the Cardinals and their chances of adding a piece of this caliber. First and foremost, they're not going to trade Walker. They're not going to trade Nootbaar. I very seriously doubt they would trade a guy like Donovan. I don't think Liberator's going anywhere. I don't think Gorman's going anywhere. Then you look at the top of their prospect pool here. You're probably going to have to include a starting pitcher. So we'll start with Hentz here. We'll kind of round out this package a little bit. We'll add another starting pitcher prospect. Let's go ahead and throw in Herrera for now and just see how close we are. There's a very good pitching prospect in Hentz, another starting pitching prospect, and a top-end catching prospect for Keller. Do I think that's enough for the Pirates to be interested in trading him within the division? Absolutely not. But that at least might get the conversation going. Probably expand that to another top prospect coming from the Cardinals. Just kind of the premium for trading him within the division. But should be a very interesting trade deadline for both teams. I think the Pirates, they do have some pieces to sell. I think they'd be a little crazy to trade Keller. But Bednar, I think, is a little bit more available than Keller is at this point. Looking at the Cardinals side of things, they need some starting pitching. They need to get it in there quickly. So let's look at some other ideas to possibly get the Cardinals some starting pitching. Let's clear out this trade. We're going to go ahead and add the Cardinals once again. This time, we're not going to look for major league starters. We're going to look for top-end starting pitchers coming from the minors. So there's a lot of them out there, but you're going to have to sell some of your pieces. So looking at guys like Flaherty, etc., guys that are going to be available here at the deadline. We talked about DeYoung, most likely going somewhere. We talked about the Dodgers a lot. The Dodgers are needing some starters. They've already added a little bit here at the deadline. They're not wanting to add a bunch of payroll. So outside of getting the Mets to pay completely for the tab of a guy like Verlander, maybe the Cardinals could be a fit here. So let's kind of do a Cardinals and Dodgers trade here. We're going to look at the Major League roster. We're going to look at starting pitchers. So that's kind of your group of starters on the Cardinals right now. Michaelis is one of them that's expected to go here at the deadline, along with Montgomery and Flaherty. I think a guy like Flaherty, I think, could have a lot of success out there in LA. He's the younger of the starting pitchers here. So let's go ahead and put Flaherty in this trade to the Dodgers. Notice the trade value, though, is approximate 4 versus 8, almost double. I'm not buying it. It's almost double the difference there, but Flaherty, I think, is going to have a pretty penny coming back for him. Do I think it's going to be one of the Dodgers' top pitching prospects? No, but the Dodgers have a deep farm system. You should be able to pluck something to your liking from it. So let's look at the minors roster here. Do they not have this sorted properly? I guess not. They didn't label a bunch of these guys. Okay. Let's start in the lower end here, shall we? Let's say you just want a grab bag of prospects. I'm just going to grab 3 guys at random here. 3 lottery tickets, starting pitching prospects. Not even taking a look to see who they are, etc. right now. Just lower end prospects that you might want to take a chance on if you're the Cardinals. That could be something that gets done fairly easily. I don't think this is the type of trade that would get the Cardinals anywhere quickly, but might be something that works out in the long term for the Cardinals right now. Now let's say, hey, you want one definitive prospect coming back, somebody you've heard of before. You don't like this, lottery grab bag approach to trying to get some prospects. You just want to get somebody that you can point to and say, hey, I trust his future more than I do losing his production. Wow. Josh Smith beating out a single there. All right, so let's look at some of the guys who might have a little bit better trajectory here. Dustin May, I don't think they're going to want to trade him as much as you guys might like him. Urias is in the final year of his deal. He ain't going anywhere. Let's see. Who else could you possibly get here? Grove could be an interesting piece. Say you wanted to get one of these higher end pieces. Say you really like Sheehan and think he has a really bright future. You want to get him. Notice his trade value, 18.9. A trade for just Flaherty is not enough to get it done. So let's take a look and see what the Cardinals could include here off of the Major League roster. Umpires meeting once again in the Rangers game. We'll see what happens. Keeping an eye on that one for you guys. There was some discussions of Dylan Carlson possibly being linked to the New York Yankees. Maybe a guy like Edman here could be of interest. Dodgers are looking to make a big push into the postseason. What would it take for the D-backs to get Javi Baez? For the Tigers to eat the entire contract. All right, so let's see what they could add here. DeYoung, not really positive value here. O'Neill has a 6.1 value. I think you could get something decent for O'Neill, though, if you packaged him separately in a different deal to another contender. Welcome in, John. Yes, we discussed that a few minutes ago. We'll dig into that here in just a moment for those of you who are just joining us anyway. For the sake of discussion, let's go ahead and say Carlson is the piece that goes to the Dodgers. Now, here is a trade I would think the Cardinals would say, hey, I'm not comfortable giving up Carlson for Sheehan. I would want more in return. And I wouldn't blame you. You're giving up a starting pitcher and a good high-quality outfielder with control. It does free up some of your logjam in the outfield, though, so that's kind of the part of the reason, at least, why I would discuss Dylan Carlson. Let's look at the Dodgers prospects, though. You get Sheehan. Say you go ahead and get Stone here. So it's kind of a 2-for-2 trade here. Dodgers have not been a fan of doing this type of a trade in the past, giving up top prospects. But if you're getting club control in Carlson, maybe they would consider doing something like this, especially when they're trying to go after Shohei Ohtani this offseason. So they're not going to have a whole lot of money to go out there and spend outside Ohtani this offseason. So this could be an interesting move, but it also costs them a lot of their starting pitching depth going forward. So Sheehan's already at the major league level, had some success already. This is something that could work really well for the Cardinals. I'm not sure if I'm the Dodgers, I would say yes to this. If you take out Stone and maybe put in a couple other guys instead, then it might be more interesting. But for the Cardinals, this gets your starting pitching really going again, as far as that development side of your starting pitching that you're supposed to be so good at. I think that the organization needs to re-examine how they develop starters, and they need to bring in another manager and pitching coach this offseason. Don't want to advocate for anybody to lose their job, but front office made the decision to go to Marmol and move on from Mike Maddox this offseason. Suffice to say, it didn't work out very well. Alrighty, so that's kind of one of the trade ideas here. Let's kind of go back to the top story on the market, of course. The Angels are reportedly taking Shohei Ohtani off of the trade market. What does this mean for baseball? First and foremost, what's the report? The Angels are said to want to go ahead and hold on to Ohtani because, one, the prospects that are being offered are not top prospects. This could be just a stunt to drive up the price before the deadline. We shall see. But for teams, this at least gives them some clarity to move in other directions. This also means that the Angels are going to be buyers and not sellers at this year's deadline. The Angels absolutely need to make some type of a move one way or the other. If they're going to go all in for Ohtani and just risk everything on a roulette table, possibly trying to convince Shohei Ohtani to stay with success of one postseason series, okay, that's the way you want to go. Okay. Don't think it's the right decision. Think it's complete organizational malpractice to not have traded him a couple years ago. I think it's absolutely crazy to not trade him now. But if that's the bet you want to make, you better be willing to live with the results, because it's going to be very, very thin for the next several years if you don't retain Shohei. Worst case scenario is you spend all the prospect capital that you have left in your organization. You go out there and get rentals here at the deadline or controllable assets, whatever the case may be. You do everything. Go all in. Try to get a wild card spot. Don't make it. Shohei Ohtani is left with yet another postseason where he has to sit at home and watch other teams play for the championship. We saw how important it was for him to win in the World Baseball Classic, and that's not even Major League Baseball. He got to play for his country, I get it. Very important. But we're talking about two of the top three best players in the sport for the past decade in Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, and not one postseason series to even show for it. So, again, if you're willing to make your bed, you got to be willing to lie in it if things do not work out your way. So, say the worst case scenario happens, you leave, or you spend everything this offseason or this trade deadline. He leaves in the offseason. You're left with 8 to 10 years of, well, Oakland A-level baseball, because that's where your prospects are going to be after this trade deadline. That's how bad things have gotten. But I think they need to trade Shohei Ohtani, absolutely. Complete organizational malpractice for what they've already done, not moving him by now. And to not move him by the deadline, sorry, I understand Artie Moreno's the owner. If I'm Perry Manassian and I'm trying to get a future GM job somewhere else, I know Moreno ain't going to keep me around if I can't keep Ohtani after the season anyway. Now no other team is going to touch me because I didn't do the right thing and get in my owner's ear and tell him this is the right thing that needs to happen, and demonstrate to him and articulate why it needs to happen and get the right thing done from a baseball perspective. No other team was ever going to trust him to be able to do that for their franchise ever again. So we shall see what happens. But as for what the Shohei Ohtani market, what this does for the market around him, it allows other teams to go out there and move on to those other targets that they have. The Dodgers now get to move on to some of the smaller targets that they have, like Ahmed Rosario, Kike Hernandez, maybe some starting pitching that's out there on the market. Maybe Justin Verlander if they decide to dip their toe into that market. The Rangers can go ahead and move on from a guy that would have been a perfect fit for the needs that they have and go ahead and attack that bullpen. They can go ahead and add another starter. They've been connected to Cody Bellinger, Lance Lynn, pretty much all of the Chicago White Sox relievers, David Bednar as well. They've been connected to Marcus Stroman as well. There's a lot of teams out there that now have some clarity with the in regards to Shohei Ohtani that they can move on. The Yankees probably were holding out hope that Shohei would have been made available. They could make the all-in move, trade Jason Dominguez and a couple other top-end prospects, maybe even somebody off of their major league roster, and really make a go of it with Ohtani and Judge and try to secure a wild card spot and make a run. That was probably the best-case scenario for the Yankees here at the deadline. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to go with guys like Carlson if they can get him, Bellinger if they can get him, and we shall see what happens. But other teams out there like the Giants now can move on to guys like Justin Verlander to try to show Ohtani that they're serious about winning, etc. After failing to get the guys like Carlos Correa or Aaron Judge in the last couple of off seasons. They need to go in a different direction, and we'll see what they do. Verlander sounds like he does not want to go to the Giants this trade deadline. Sounds like he would not waive his no trade for him or for the San Francisco Giants. So that's kind of where we're at with the LA Angels. As far as what they could do as far as buying here at the deadline, I think they absolutely need some starting pitching. They're going to get some guys back from the injured list over the next couple of weeks. Mike Trout's right now off on the injured list right now anyway, and we'll see if they can continue to get to keep the bat of Mickey Moniak as hot as it's been. And once Mike Trout comes back, their offense probably will be just fine. The bigger question for them is what is that pitching staff and that bullpen going to do? Sounds like Estevez is going to stay there with the Angels as well through the deadline because they're going to be buyers, not sellers. I thought he would have been able to command a pretty penny on the trade market at the deadline this year. But what other options could they have to go out there and get? Now, the White Sox are going to be sellers. The Cardinals are going to be sellers. Maybe they could go out there and get a guy like Jordan Hicks if the Cardinals can't get him locked up. Maybe go out there and get a guy like Lucas Giolito. He's been connected to a bunch of the West Coast clubs, most notably the Arizona Diamondbacks and the LA Angels. He's also been connected to both of the Texas clubs, the Rangers and Astros. So Lucas Giolito looks like he's going to be out of the White Sox before the deadline. John, the Angels farm system is currently ranked near the bottom. How are buyers near the deadline? Well, even when you have really poor farm system, you can package a bunch of those lottery ticket level prospects, guys that are 17, 18, 19 years old, and might be able to get, some of the rental type options available out there on the market. I saw that Sarah Flaherty was crying with his teammates anyway. I thought I saw a clip before the game. He actually was hugging his mom on the field in what was going to be very likely his final start for the Cardinals. Very emotional time for Flaherty, as you can imagine. And I think that is the last time we'll see him in a Cardinals uniform on the mound. Appreciate you guys joining us. Got 17 of you guys, 18 of you guys with us right now. Make sure you hit that like button. It really does help us out. Subscribe. Make sure you join us on deadline day. We'll be live for you guys first thing in the morning on deadline day, 8 a.m. We'll be live all the way through the deadline, maybe an hour or two after, just in case we get some late-breaking deals. So make sure you stock up on some drinks. Make sure you don't have anywhere to go. And if you're working, hey, we'll be happy to keep you guys updated while you're working. So make sure you follow us at UpsideSN on Twitter and hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. It really does help us out if you hit that like button as well. So thank you in advance, and thank you so much for the people who have already done so. Really appreciate the support. We'll go through some trade ideas again here in just a moment. Watching the Astros and the Rangers game, absolutely fun game to watch right now. If you guys haven't checked it out already, couple of ejections in the game. Martin Maldonado and Marcus Semien both ejected in the game. Benches cleared at one point in the game already. Astros got out to a 3-0 lead, and now it's 13 unanswered by the Rangers. They chased Framber Valdez, actually shook him on the mound, visibly shook him, and he was not able to throw a strike pretty much after the Marcus Semien at bat. Just a fun game to watch in the middle of July. So exactly what the front office of the Texas Rangers wanted to see is some backbone, and that's what Bruce Bochy really has instilled in them. They really haven't come from behind much at all this season, especially late in games, and really tough back against their wall situation, losing the first two games of the series against the Astros. And if they lose this one, the Astros would, by the tiebreaker, would have had the lead in the AL West after this game. But Rangers holding out. They're not giving in yet. They lead by 10 in the bottom of the 7th. Make it the top of the 8th after Pena swings and misses and chases strike 3. What a performance by Jose Leclerc. Leclerc's been good over the past couple of weeks. Rangers may have found themselves another bullpen piece that they can count on. They've been counting on Aroldis Chapman, Will Smith, Brock Burke to some extent, and now maybe they've found a fourth arm in that bullpen that they can regularly turn to. I still think the Rangers are going to add at least one relief arm, probably two. I think if ideally this team would have had Jacob deGrom in that starting rotation, they probably wouldn't need a starter right now, just because of the depth they would have with Dane Dunning still being there as the long reliever. That's the other relief pitcher that I think the Rangers really need right now, is a long reliever that they can count on. They got a couple of prospects that they've been relying on that role since Dane Dunning was moved to the starting rotation, in Glenn Otto, Cody Bradford, etc. I wonder if they go out there into the market and see if they can find somebody to fill that role that has a little bit more seasoning, playoff experience, etc. This team, for all of the offseason moves that they've done, all the veterans that they've brought in, Corey Seager leads the Texas Rangers in playoff games played at 61. You know who's second? Aroldis Chapman at 35 and Will Smith at 20. You look on the other side of the coin with the Houston Astros and all the playoff games that they have played, most of that roster, most of the regular guys in that roster are guys that have played significant games in the postseason. And Rangers, I believe, could use some of that going down the stretch here. Somebody who's familiar with the trials and tribulations of going through the dog days of August, getting through a pennant race and into the postseason. Because remember, the first two division winners, the top two division winners on each side, get a free pass to the LDS. They do not have to play in the wild card round. Meanwhile, the second place finisher and in that division is going to have to go into that wild card series, best of 3. We saw what happened last year to teams like the New York Mets, a 100-win club there. The Yankees, another 100-win club that got bounced early in the postseason last year. Getting that bye in that first round is very important. So teams like the Orioles, Rays, Rangers, and Astros all competing for that right now. It looks like the Minnesota Twins are going to be sealed in, or the Guardians, to that number 3 spot. They will have to play in that wild card round. Now on the National League side, the Braves look like they're running away with the division in the East anyway. You look at who's competing for the Second spot as far as division winners, Dodgers right now and Milwaukee. I would expect the Dodgers to probably run away with that one, and Milwaukee will be left in that wild card round anyway. And, Atlanta and Dodgers, the Atlanta Braves and the Dodgers getting a pass anyway into the next round of the playoffs is very important for them as well. Lets them rest up. They got a lot of aging veterans on that Dodgers team. Meanwhile, the Braves, they've really been pushing the pedal to the metal anyway with that roster. They don't have as much depth as they used to have, say, 3-4 years ago. And they've been using that depth so far and very effectively this year. You just don't want it to wear out completely. So getting them some time off, letting them sit out a round of the playoffs, I think will do the wonders for both of those clubs. Looking at the American League side, as I mentioned, the top 4 clubs are really competing for those spots right now. Baltimore, Texas, Tampa, and Houston. We'll see who ultimately wins those 2 divisions. We'll probably get the easy bye into that division series. So remember that wild card round it's not just about making the playoffs. You got to be able to try to win those divisions and be one of those top 2 teams. Otherwise, you have to play an extra round in the postseason. And like the LA Angels trying to just make a postseason spot for the first time since Shohei Ohtani has been in the major leagues, as important as it is to the organization to try to get into the postseason in that long of a period of time, you also have to wonder, hey, am I just going to be playing 2 games and back on my couch anyway? If I get swept early by, say, the Tampa Bay Rays, who I probably would have to play, the Tampa Bay Rays or the Minnesota Twins, I think the first round series in the wild card round will probably be Tampa and Houston. So that'll be a very fun series to watch. 2 of the best teams in all of baseball this year. And then that last wild card in the American League will probably face the Twins. Can the Angels face the Twins and beat them? I would say the pitching would have to go the Twins' way. I'd say the lineup, at least at the moment, I would still lean the Twins because I think they're going to be able to get their offense straightened out. They've got one of the best hitters so far in the second half in Julian in the lineup, guy you've never heard of, I guarantee it. And then you look at the rest of that lineup. Brian Buxton's already down in the 6th spot. Kirilov is one of the hottest bats in all of baseball. And their pitching staff, I think, is what's going to carry them over the Angels. But we shall see. If the Angels do what they say and go out there and buy here at the deadline, if they add somebody like a Dylan Cease, they don't have the prospects to do it. But if they did, might really move the needle for that organization. If they go out there and add a guy like Marcus Stroman, might really move the needle for the organization to try to secure that final wild card spot. I think Toronto's still going to add here at the deadline as well. And I think they are the best team out of the entire group of teams competing for that wild card spot. But I'd put Boston probably second. They are still even selling pieces right now. They're still going to probably sell Adam Duvall probably to the Atlanta Braves. And I think they could add here at the deadline as well. Yankees, if they go out there and do the all-in thing and make the big move, maybe something could happen there. They are getting Aaron Judge healthy. He is expected to be back on Friday, barring any setbacks. John, do you think the Rangers are considering any bats like Cody Bellinger of the Cubs? We know they are. Evan Grant reported as much today that they are checking in on guys like Cody Bellinger. Evan Grant specifically mentioned Cody Bellinger because he knows for a fact they have reached out to the Cubs about him specifically. Now, I'm sure there's other players on that club that they've reached out about as well, Kyle Hendricks, Stroman, just to at least see what the price is on those type of guys. But Bellinger is the one name in particular that they did talk about with the Cubs. Do I think something will happen there? We shall see. The Cubs, they've got a couple of guys that could get, big prices here on the trade deadline market in Stroman and Bellinger. They could turn around and package some of those pieces that they get back for, a guy like Dylan Cease or a Mitch Keller or a Logan Gilbert, something of that caliber coming back. But, the Cubs are going to get a pretty penny for both of those guys if they decide to sell. Remember, their run differential so far right now is pretty high among those teams in the wild card picture. Let's kind of scroll down here just so you guys can see it. The run differential, that was kind of the big discussion on MLB Now today, was the run differential and teams in the wild card race in the National League side that really have a chance. Brian Kenny was making the argument that Cubs and Padres are 2 of the teams that really have a good chance to make it all the way. So we shall see. Miami, though, is finally getting Sandy Alcantara, finally moving in the right direction. But they're 1-9 in their last 10. They still have a record of 6 games over 500, even with that 1-9 record. Tells you how high they were and how far they've fallen. Diamondbacks are starting to fall back a little bit. Reds seem to be calling up a top prospect every single week, but at a certain point, those guys are going to start to are going to start to struggle. Dodgers supposedly shown interest in Joe Kelly. Not surprised there. He did pitch for the Dodgers for a couple of years anyway. Dodgers seem to be trying to get the band back together, at least to a certain extent, with Kike Hernandez coming back. But really appreciate all you guys joining us here this evening. Looks like the Rangers are going to go with, is this Owen White, the Rangers' top pitching prospect coming on? Looks like they might be getting him some work here at the Major League level against a good Astros team. Those of you interested in making a trade with the Texas Rangers, if you're selling club, you might want to tune in and see what Owen White has for your team. Maybe Rangers would be willing to part with him if you're willing to part with some top-end talent in return. I know Cardinals fans would love some starting pitching, so maybe Owen White might be a guy that would be of interest to you. He's pitched, I believe, once so far in the big leagues, 2 innings, gave up a couple of runs in his debut. But he's been very good at the minor league level. Cody Bradford, also on this Rangers club, pitched very well against Houston yesterday. He was ranked on the pipeline, on MLB pipeline, at the 26th spot. However, in Baseball America, he's like at 6 in the Rangers, 6 or 7 on the Rangers side on Baseball America. So a lot of fluctuation upon what Cody Bradford could bring as far as what his actual value is on the market. But Rangers, like I said, have a lot of prospects, a lot of different ways that they can build a trade package here at the deadline. So we shall see what happens. We're almost to the 10 o'clock hour, about to go ahead and call it here in just a few minutes. If you guys have any questions, now's the time. Send them to me. Would love to answer your questions. Maybe we can run together a trade here and see if we can find something that works for both sides. We'll kind of wrap up, do one of those here. We did a little bit of Cardinals talk, talked a lot about the Rangers in previous episodes. Let's talk about what the Angels could actually buy with the prospects they have. I know one of you guys was actually asking about that. Look at the value that a lot of this team has, how top-heavy this organization is. Detmers, Sandoval, Canning are the only other guys above 10. Above 10! That's how thin it is for the LA Angels. Ohtani, 45, and he's got 2 months of control left. Tell me what's the smart thing to do as an organization. Trade Ohtani and get 5, 6 organizational building blocks, or throw it all to the wind and give away the rest of these 9s and 8s on your prospect list? Which one's the smarter decision? Again, organizational malpractice is what's going on with the LA Angels if they do not move Shohei Ohtani. And Perry Manassian will never, mark my words, never be a general manager ever again after this season if they do not move on from Shohei Ohtani. But let's look at what they could get. They could get some decent prospect, or they could get a decent, arm here at the deadline. A lot of starting pitchers are lower level right now. Looking at Flaherty's value for the Cardinals, he was at 4.1. Say you include a guy like Bush here, that's kind of your top prospect, or maybe even go a little lower, and give him a guy like Madden, maybe another guy like Urla, maybe even Dana here. Any one of those types of arms, package a couple of them together, you could get a rental type of a piece. Are you getting Dylan Cease for that? Not a chance. Are you getting Corbin Burns for that? Not a chance. If the Mets are willing to eat all of the contract of Justin Verlander, what would it cost you? Probably a couple of the top-end guys right here that are at the top of your organization. And then Verlander, after the season, says, hey, Ohtani doesn't want to be here. Hey, trade me too. I don't want to be here either. You might be able to get something back for him after the season, I guess, but things do not look good from an Angels perspective as to what they could actually do after this season. Sure, they could literally cash in their next 10 years of their future right now. Bottom out, get one of the top 4 picks in the draft for the next 5 years. And then maybe they'll have a team that actually has a chance to compete for the division in 8 years. And then they might win the division again in 10. That's how bleak the future looks when you do not trade Shohei Ohtani. Jake Myers struck out there by Owen White. Nice job by the young starter. Just how big of a guy Owen White is. Just kind of a commanding presence on the mound. Big right-hander. Reminds me of like a young Lance Lynn, except more athletic. He's got a little thickness to him, but it's not necessarily the big, Bartolo Colon thick. I'm talking like muscular thick, country strong, that type of player. Dubon is up here, pinch hitting. John, do you think the Rangers double dip with the Royals? Maybe Scott Barlow from the Royals? Absolutely not. The only reason I say that is because the Rangers absolutely cannot stand walks. Barlow does walk them at 5 batters per 9. Strikeout rate's pretty good, though. He's got a strikeout rate around 11. His ERA isn't great this year, but I don't think that's a match at all, purely based on walks. The Rangers have seen their fair share of walks out of that bullpen and walks out of that starting rotation. They do not want to have to deal with another pitcher who can't manage to throw strikes. And that's the issue with Scott Barlow is the walks. They took on the risk of Chapman. His issue was the walks as well, but he seemed to have been handling that so far with the Kansas City Royals this year. Barlow's on the other end of the spectrum, still getting the strikeouts, but also giving up the walks. 2 away here. Owen White so far working a clean bottom of the 8th inning. But in case you guys are wondering what we're actually looking at here, what it would cost for the Angels to actually add here at the deadline, Astros might use a position player to pitch here in the top of the 9th here in just a moment. Rangers have faced a lot of position players as far as pitchers so far this year. Yordan Alvarez bounces out to first, and Owen White works a clean 8th inning against the 2-3-4 in the lineup. Of course, 2 of them were not the normal 2-3-4 guys in the lineup for the Astros. Alvarez the only one that's regularly in there. However, Dubon's having a nice season. What do you think we get for Montgomery, Sarah? Let's take a look. Montgomery at 8.1, if I remember correctly. What could they get? Let's say they do a trade with the Angels. What could they get? Something like... They could get something in the range of... Well, there you go. Looks like the site just updated a little bit. Literally while we were doing that. Ohtani was at 44 and change. Now he's up to 45. Oh, and I had it on the pitching filter on the other one. My bad. But it did update to 45. All right, so you're looking at 8.4 for Silith. Oh, I'm doing the other side of this. There we go. That's better. Angels could do something like that. They could get some lower level guys from the Angels system, package them all together. Other teams that need starting pitching. Let's go to the Diamondbacks. They've been connected to a lot of these middle type of starters. They're not going to give you guys like Lawler or anybody like that, but maybe you could get a guy like Cicione here. Melendez would be an interesting piece. Something like that. Maybe build a package around something of a smaller level prospects essentially there. Think of prospects in the range of like, for a guy like Montgomery, in the range of like 10 to 30 on MLB Pipeline. The top organization's, top 10 to 30 prospects. You're not going to get, 1 to 10, but you might get 10 to 30, somewhere in that range. John, I believe the Angels are driving up the price for Ohtani with the latest report. That's some of the rumor that's out there. At least that's what MLB Network would like you to believe. I believe Tom Verducci's source is actually legitimate and inside of the Angels organization. Do I think it's a game and a ploy to get better offers? Well, if they weren't getting any top prospect offers, absolutely. But I think that's a little bit of tongue-in-cheek there. I think they were getting legitimate offers. I think this was more about the Angels' ownership not wanting to move Shohei Ohtani. Could they still be bowled over? Absolutely. But do I think Artie Moreno, even if he is bowled over, is going to end up pulling the trigger on it? I don't. But, nope. Looks like the Astros are going to go with Stanek, see if they can straighten him out after his poor performance the other night. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be live again for you guys tomorrow night at 8:30. Make sure you guys join us. And again, we will be live for you guys on trade deadline day all day long. So make sure you hit that like button on the video. Hit that subscribe button. In case you guys missed the news, saw a couple of trades today. We saw the Dodgers add Ahmed Rosario from the Guardians in exchange for Noah Syndergaard. Twins flipped relievers with the Marlins, sending Jorge Lopez to the Marlins in exchange for Dylan Floro. We saw a little bit of news out of the Ohtani and Angels camp saying basically Ohtani's off the table and the Angels will be buyers. A little bit of other news anyway around the league is Lance Lynn. His market certainly is heating up right now. We really appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you then.